Hi, and welcome to video 3 of our module on projects, tibbles, and importing data. We're going to start today with the importing of data. So there's several kinds of files you may want to import, including flat files, XML, JSON, web scraping, APIs. We'll get to all of those. Most of those types we'll get to next semester. For now, I want you to be able to just download a file from the web, and then I also want you to be able to read in a CSV file. So we will start with, for instance, here is a URL that I want to download the file to. So this is coming from an API, but I'm just going to save the URL link into what I'm just going to call file URL. You could save it into any variable name you want. And then typically before I download a file, I want to make sure that a data folder exists wherever I am. And if it does not, I want to create one, and then I want to download that file into that spot. So here's how I check. So I'm going to check here to see, this says if does not file exists. So if it doesn't have a data folder, then I will do directory create data. If it already exists, then it will just ignore that, right? And then I'm going to use download.file, and I'm going to put that URL, so whatever variable name I gave it up there, I'm going to put that first, and I'm going to tell it where to put it. So I'm going to put it in the data folder, and I'm going to call it traffic.csv. And now it'll take a few minutes downloading that file. And if you have a Mac computer, you may have to add method equals curl to the download file command. Okay, once we have it downloaded, then I also would like to make a note somewhere in my R Markdown of when I downloaded it so that I have that recorded. So I would like to keep the date that I downloaded it and print it out to the file so that we know when we accessed that file. And it's still downloading my file. It's a fairly large file. I went and found a traffic data set from Montgomery County, Maryland, where they keep all of the data on all the traffic stops and so forth, so that if I wanted to do analysis on it, I could. So I'm going to pause the recording while that completes downloading. Wow, okay, that took me a while because that was a large file. Okay, so we're going to look at different ways you can read that data in. So I could try just a read.table, and I'm going to try putting it in a variable called traffic data. And it's going to have a problem with that because it didn't recognize the first row as a header. So let's put some options now into that and say, okay, we're going to use the separator of a comma and a header equals true, but it hit problems when it got to line 439. I could also do read.csv, and some of you are used to using that if you've used R before. And then we could look at that and see what we've got once it reads it in. So I'm going to pause again while it's reading that in. Okay, finally finished reading that in, and let's see now if I can just look at the head of that data set. So I'm looking at just the top 2 rows of the data set, and I see what all is in there. Okay, now I'm going to use read_CSV, and this is our preference because this is part of the tidyverse, and we'll read it in and make it a tibble. And it will tell me how it's parsing the columns, and I can change how it's making those columns. So I could make these different. This is a logical, this is a time format, a character, double, so forth. And it's giving me, you see in this case, it's telling me what % done it is and how many megabytes it's read in. So it's given me that feedback here that I didn't get with read.csv. And I will also see when this concludes that it's a tibble that I get as a result. So again, I'm going to pause this while it finishes. Because if you're anything like me, you start to wonder if there's a problem with the code when you don't see anything. So this way, at least I know that it's progressing. Okay, and now I could just look at traffic data, because now it's a tibble. So it gives me all of the variable names and the type of the variable and the first 10 rows of whatever it can fit on the screen. So that's a much easier format to work with. Now when I look at readr, there are several different, let me see if I can pull this into the screen where you can see it. So there's several different file types I can use with readr. So generally I'm going to use read_CSV. And that's for comma delimited files. So that's where a comma separates the entries. I could use CSV2 if it's semicolon, TSV if it's tab delimited. And then I can specify a delimiter. So I can read_delim and put the delimiter in here. And that'll tell me I can use any kind of delimiter I want. Or I can use read_FWF for fixed width files. Now some common options that you may want to specify in your readr command. You could do skip equals in, like skip equals 3 would skip the first 3 lines. So sometimes you're reading in a file and it's got some comments to start with and you don't want to read those in. So you could do the skip. You can also do comment equals hashtag to skip lines that are starting with a hashtag. Or you could use any other thing in there. If you've got comment equals C to start with that. Another common option you may want to specify is what are you going to turn into an NA. So what things in the file will you turn into NA? So in this case I'm saying if it says not available, if it's just empty, if it's just a dot, or if it says NA. Any of those are going to become NA in my file that I read in. Okay, that's it for today. For this lecture, we'll come back and we'll do some more of inputting files.